Well, howdy there, Internet students. This is Mr. Hermanson, your math teacher, online math teacher. We're going to be doing the first chapter. We're going to start the first lesson today, Operations on Real Numbers. You will watch a video, and you're going to have to watch it interactively, which means you're going to have to pause and do some problems along the way. Make sure you get all your notes down. And don't ever take any shortcuts on doing math because it turns out that learning math requires you to do math. So anyway, this first chapter is about operations on real numbers. Now, real numbers are, let's see if I can get this highlighter to work. Real numbers are pretty much the numbers that you've seen up to this point in your life. They could be fractions, they could be decimals, they could be numbers like pi. Maybe you've even seen some square roots along the way. These are all real numbers. Okay, so don't forget your order of operations. If you do forget it, it's right here on the front page. On the second page, we have a multiplication table for those of you that can use that. Try to see patterns in the multiplication table, and eventually you'll get those and you'll be able to use them a lot easier. These are some important vocab. Today, the important word we're going to talk about is absolute value. We're going to talk about how it's the distance between a number and zero. Okay, and then some other words that we learn a lot are that we use a lot are in here. Okay, this is just a blank page if you want to put some notes there. And there's an extra vocab thing there if you want to take some out and make some flashcards to help you learn. Okay, these are the important ideas from this unit that you are going to be tested on. And let's start by doing this. So the game of Jeopardy, people get points for getting questions right, and those points are dollars. And whoever has the most money at the end wins. So in each of these pictures is a part of a game. So go ahead and fill in who you think is in first, second, third, and how did you know that? So this is when we're doing the interactive videos, you would pause right now and fill in your answers and then start up the video again to see if you were right. All right, so you probably had the same answers as I did. It's pretty easy to tell who's winning. And how do you know? Well, you might have said something like, you know that negative numbers are less than positive numbers. So a person with a positive number of dollars is always going to be ahead of a person with a negative number of dollars. And that the more negative you are, in other words, if we ignore the negative sign, the bigger the negative number, ignoring the sign, the less you have. In other words, you're further behind. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about positive and negative numbers like this and compare them. And sometimes we're going to talk about negative numbers in the sense that how negative are they? So, and we're going to use a thing called absolute value for that. Go ahead and read this about different uses of positive and negative numbers. So again, this is be a good time for you to pause. All right, so there's a couple ways you can think about negative numbers, and Zoe and Darnell are going to illustrate those. And Darnell here, he thinks that we should think of this negative sign as the opposite. So when we see this, we can just say the word the opposite. So if we have the opposite and then the number 3, the opposite of 3, well, the opposite of positive 3 is negative 3. So this is a negative 3. Now, if we have the opposite of a negative 3, well, that would be a positive 3. And so it's easy to figure out what the numbers are by thinking about this. And also, in algebra, it's very helpful to think about the opposite of a number, because numbers, the opposite is not always a negative number, as we can see in this case here. Okay, so go ahead and look at these negative signs here and express each number using as few negative signs as possible. You should at most have one negative sign. So go ahead and fill your answers in there. Again, this will be a great time for you to pause. So for every negative, you should be switching from positive to negative. So if you have 2 negatives, like in this first one, you end up with a positive. If you have 4 negatives, you end up with a positive. And the last one, you have 5 negatives, so that ends up being a negative. Okay, now we're going to talk about the least and the greatest by looking at a number line and thinking about a number line. So the numbers that are furthest to the left this way are smaller, and the numbers that are further to the right are more positive. So more negative, the further left you go, more positive, the further right you go, and the more positive, the greater the number. So go ahead and pause here and put a dot where you think these numbers are and then label those spots. So it should look something like this, and once they're on the number line, now you can just go in order from left to right. So the smallest number here is -5, -3.5, -0.25, 0, 1.75, 4, and 4.2. All right. Now, Zoe, when she sees a negative number on the number line, she thinks about where the number is and how far it is from 0. So whether it's left of 0 or right of 0. The thing that happens when you're left or right, those are both 4 units from 0. So what we say here is the absolute value of -4. And the symbols look like this. And so these symbols are saying how far is the number -4 from 0, and that's actually equal to 4. And there's another number that's also 4 units from 0. It's just 4 units to the right of 0, and that's equal to 4. So when we talk about the distance from a number is from the number line, that's called the absolute value. I'm going to have you go ahead and watch that video right now. You'll find that video in the classwork section. And it's just a 2-minute video that talks about absolute value. I think it's good. So why don't you go ahead and pause this video and go back to the classwork and watch that absolute value video. Okay, so so when we're talking about the distance from 0, like let's say you're 35 feet below the surface of a lake. So you want to think of that as a negative number, but if you were asked, well, how far do you have to swim to get back up to the surface? You wouldn't say -35 feet, you would say 35 feet. And we use this symbol, this absolute value, to denote that. Now, if you're 35 feet above the water, and maybe you're diving into the ocean, so how far do you dive to get to the water? Well, that's also 35 feet. It's just in a positive direction. So we can say the absolute value of 35 is also 35. All right, so go ahead and fill in these numbers. Remember that each negative means the opposite, and see if you check back and see how you did. Go ahead and finish all the ones on this page. Now, if you were confused about these, remember that inside the absolute value, that makes a number positive, but the negative sign outside makes it the opposite of that positive number, which is a negative number. So again, thinking of it as the opposite is a good idea. Okay. All right. So we're done with this video now, and you're going to do a little homework. Now, here's how you're going to do that. You're going to go ahead and fill this homework page out in your packet. And then you're going to go to the Google Classroom, and on the Google form, you're going to submit some of your answers. They're not every problem, but so you'll have already worked out the answers on this page, and then when you go and submit those answers, you could put them in. Now, just a couple of things that I want to go over. When you submit answers, the Google form is going to be kind of picky. So, so let me give you an example of where it's going to be picky here. Like on these answers here, you're going to have to put it in as a fraction. Now, here's how I'd like you to do it. Let's say it's 3/2 is your fraction. Now, that's called a common fraction. So you're going to use that divide by symbol there, or that slash on the computer to enter that. Now don't change this to a mixed number because it's kind of hard to put that in on the Google form. So cross that out. Also, you may have to put in a number with an exponent. So let's say you have to do 3 to the 5th power. You're going to do 3, and then you're going to use what's called the caret, and then to the 5th. So this is how on a computer you do 3 to the 5th power. Now this little caret sign is right above the 6, okay? And sometimes you're going to have units in your answer, like right here. It's going to ask how many parts Kool-Aid will they need. So you might want to say so many parts in your answer. Let's say it's 50 parts, which that's wrong. Don't ever write the units when you write the answer, and that just makes it harder, and spacing, and if you use capital letters or whatever, just put the number in. So like if the answer is 5 feet, just put in 5 for your answer. All right? All right, so good luck with that, and we'll talk to you soon.